listener production.
Hey, Chris Spear with you. Welcome to The Briefing. She's an award-winning TV host, actor and comedian who's never shied away from a political fight. Now, in Australia for the very first time, she's opening up about fame, family and her long-standing feud with the President of the United States.
I don't change what I am or what I'm doing based on who's in the office. I speak what I consider to be truth to power and a humanistic approach to politics and to world governments.
That chat with Rosie O'Donnell is coming up in the second half of this episode. First though, let's get into the headlines with Tara Cassidy. It's Tuesday, the 7th of October.
Hey Chris, and to you listening, we're starting this morning with a message from the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, who's calling for the public to cool the country's political climate after a Queensland man was charged with threatening to kill him.
We need to, wherever possible, turn down the temperature of debate and to agree and disagree respectfully.
Earlier this month, Norman Lake was arrested at a property north of Brisbane after allegedly threatening the PM via social media, while in July, in a separate incident, a New South Wales man, Alexander Keating, was charged with a similar offence, with the maximum jail term for threatening to cause harm to a public official 10 years.
According to Albanese, the country's National Security Intelligence Agency, which is ASIO, confirmed the number of threats being made against him had increased substantially over the last year. And while he doesn't expect anyone to agree with him, he says we should still behave in an acceptable way.
Yeah, that's right. And we know, Chris, that this is something that our politicians do experience quite frequently. Earlier this year alone, Albo actually reached out to former opposition leader Peter Dutton after he was the subject of an alleged terror plot.
I'm incredibly grateful to the AFP that my family are kept safe.
And in that instance, a 16-year-old boy had allegedly bought ingredients for a bomb and was preparing an attack on Dutton's home. Then, separate to that, police foiled an alleged terror plot against a New South Wales Labor MP earlier this year that was linked to a terrorist organisation. And then, separate to that again, another federal MP received death threats and anti-Semitic comments via social media from a Victorian man who was later charged as well. So it is happening a lot.
Yeah, and back at the time that this did happen to Dutton, Albo actually made a similar plea to the public saying, you know, there's no place for such behaviour in politics, and surely that's something everyone can agree on this morning. You know, you can look overseas to see the kind of political climate and violence that can stem from such heated political spaces, and that's just not something that we want to be normalising here in Australia.
The gunman accused of firing up to 50 bullets into a busy shopping precinct in Sydney's inner west, leaving one man critically injured, has been named and charged with over 20 offences. 60-year-old Artemios Minzas is facing 25 offences, including 18 counts of shooting with intent to murder, after he sent a section of Croydon Park into lockdown Sunday night after firing off dozens of bullets toward cars and people and exchanging gunfire with police.
Take your hands out the window! Both hands out the window! Stay like that! If you move, I will shoot you! Keep your hands out the window!
After a 2-hour standoff, Minzas was arrested, with authorities confirming he'd used a .30 caliber rifle to shoot indiscriminately from the window of a unit above one of the Georges River Road businesses.
Police are still trying to determine his alleged motive, saying it didn't appear to be drug or alcohol related. He'd had no recorded issues with his mental health or criminal links, just a 60-year-old man with a few kids and very few interactions with police in the last 20 years. He did not have a gun licence, with police now looking into whether the rifle was obtained legally. As for the people injured, they're reportedly doing okay, with the man who was struck by a bullet in the chest and neck having undergone emergency surgery. He's expected to survive.
Social media platforms in Australia have been ordered to take down posts showing the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the brutal stabbing murder of a Ukrainian refugee on a train in the US. Australia's eSafety Commission says it's received multiple complaints last month about those videos, and another showing the beheading of a Dallas motel owner, which it then reviewed and found to be so extreme that it exceeds an R18 plus rating, basically making it illegal to share or distribute in the country. Now, removal notices have been sent to Elon Musk's X, as well as Facebook and Instagram's parent company Meta, who have been threatened with fines of $825,000 for each day that the content remains live and for each post.
Yeah, and most of us would have seen the footage of Charlie Kirk being fatally shot in the neck while speaking at that Utah university last month, but you might have missed the footage of Irina Zarutska. Now, that was that Ukrainian refugee who was brutally stabbed in the neck while on a train in North Carolina back in August. That video has been doing the rounds since then and has caught the attention of both Elon Musk and Donald Trump, as well as a number of right-wing groups who are using it as an example to call out, quote, black on white violence and, the failures of soft on crime approaches in the US.
Yeah, and over the weekend, we actually heard from a number of influencers and content creators who shared the notices they'd received from X, telling them that their videos had breached Australian law and had been geo-blocked. One called it global censorship, while another claimed Australians are paying taxes so bureaucrats can block activists from discussing injustices.
Yeah, which is an interesting element to all of this. I've seen both the videos of Charlie Kirk and Irina. They're horrible, and they're videos that you don't expect to be seeing while you're scrolling your feeds. I mean, we expect to see it because of the work we do and needing to be across these stories, but where it gets problematic is when these wind up on someone's feed without warning because it's news of the day and the algorithm is doing its thing. So, yes, I can kind of see some surface level arguments there around censorship and the need for these killings to be discussed, absolutely, but when horrific footage is being pushed into feeds, that's problematic, and it's the role for someone, whether the government or not, to step in and deal with that.
It might be a good time to check your pay slip because wage theft has more than doubled in Australia in the last 5 years. Fresh analysis by the Fair Work Ombudsman shows that of the nearly 17,000 cases investigated in that time, more than half the businesses involved were non-compliant, adding up to nearly $1.8 billion in unpaid wages.
Now, while those wages have since been repaid to those workers, we've also been given a look into which sectors are the worst for wage theft, with the public administration and safety sector recording the highest rates, around 930 non-compliant businesses per 100,000. Coming in second is the accommodation and food services industry, with retail, utilities, transport, manufacturing and mining also in the top 10. The report also broke it down by state, finding the Northern Territory was the worst offender in relative terms, followed by Tasmania and Queensland, with Victoria, New South Wales and WA towards the bottom of the list.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that most wage theft inquiries were actually initiated by employees rather than self-reported by employers. Shock horror. So that's why it is important to know and be across your pay and, what you should be getting. Meanwhile, employers are being advised to invest in ongoing training and to try and use technology to avoid costly consequences of these kind of non-compliance findings, because sometimes it can happen unintentionally, but it's a big price to pay for a mistake like that.
And the White House has hit back at a cheeky Saturday Night Live skit that began the show's 51st season, mocking the US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and, of course, President Donald Trump.
We're facing the greatest threat to freedom and democracy the world has ever known. And we all know what that threat is. Late night TV. Well, hello, it's great to be here. Yes, it's me, your favorite president.
The show kicked off its season premiere with the cold open, with a fake Trump warning the SNL cast not to take their jokes too far or face the consequences. Now, since the skit went to air, the White House released a statement saying, quote, "Reaction to this would require me to waste my time watching it, and like millions of Americans who have tuned out from SNL, I have more entertaining things to do, like watching paint dry."
I mean, spicy, but technically they are reacting by actually releasing that statement. Yeah. So also, I just think it's silly, when did we lose the ability to laugh at ourselves? This is the whole premise of comedy. And this isn't the first time, obviously, that the White House and the Trump administration have tried to axe shows. Just recently, Jimmy Kimmel, although he's back. But before that, there was rumours circulating that Trump got involved in Stephen Colbert's show. But he has not managed to bring down Chris despite attempt after attempt is South Park, which basically apparently because they're satire, they're more protected. And there's this latest episode that he has tried to get removed and he's still trying because it's about, well, a small appendage.
Yeah. And also his on-again, off-again relationship with Satan. So,
yes.
there's also that little bugaboo. Now, look, these are all themes that we discuss in today's deep dive, which is actually Helen Smith's chat with US comedian and actress Rosie O'Donnell, who's now living in Ireland, mostly because of Trump's re-election. Stick around, that deep dive is coming up for you next.
And this is the Rosie O'Donnell Show.
We're doing a live show here.
I think he's the worst thing that ever happened to the United States.
You've called women you don't like disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
I don't really understand how people could support a convicted felon.
It's the Rosie O'Donnell Show.
Comedian Rosie O'Donnell has touched down in Australia for the very first time ahead of her one-woman show, Common Knowledge. The Emmy Award-winning presenter has never shied away from politics, and it's politics that partly drove her to relocate to Ireland. She's always been a vocal critic of Donald Trump, with her name once again making global headlines after he threatened to revoke her US citizenship earlier this year. But there's more to Rosie than the headlines portray. I sat down with her inside the iconic Sydney Opera House, and we got deep on how the passing of her mother when she was just 10 years old informs her new show, and what her relationship with fame looks like now that she's living outside the US. Rosie, you've said that one thing about becoming famous that you've lost is the ability to observe people. How has that impacted how you perform now?
Well, when I was not famous, I would be able to interact with the cashier at Tesco. And, Tesco's like the big supermarket in Ireland. And, I would make the cashiers laugh or, that just for fun, when I was not known. And it was such a part of my life and my world and where I got material that once I became the observed instead of the observer, it changed how I was able to prepare my comedy because I could say, I saw this guy in the mall and tell a whole story about the guy in the mall, but I can't watch unobserved anymore. Right. And when people see me, they have a reaction, at least in America, they'll go like, oh, I agree with everything you say. That's great. Great to meet you. I don't agree with anything you say. Okay. All righty. Nice to meet you too. So it's difficult to be constantly watched. And living in Ireland has been amazing because they don't have a celebrity culture there. They don't I was telling somebody that I was at a beer garden with my kid where you can order burgers from next door. And there was a couple with a little baby and my kid was playing with their baby and we all were, and I thought, oh, they don't recognize me at all. And we had a wonderful shared dinner. And then as I was leaving, they said, all right, Rosie, well, welcome to Ireland, love. And we're big fans of yours. I said, what? You're big fans of mine. You didn't mention it for the 2 hours we were having dinner. And they said, well, we didn't want to bother you with it. We didn't want to bother you, but welcome to Ireland. Welcome. It's unbelievable.
That sounds like way more of a vibe.
Yeah, it's such a good vibe. And
I like that.
It makes me feel like pre-fame where I can go out and, if they do recognize me, they're very good at not showing it, But most people just say, Rosie, welcome to Ireland, love. You're welcome here. You're welcome here, darling. Thank you. We hate Trump too. Thank you for that. Thank you. I'll stay.
Now, speaking of Trump, you've never been afraid to get political.
Right.
In today's climate, do you feel that there's more urgency to speak out or
oh, God,
more fatigue?
Yes. Of course. I mean, there was urgency when he orchestrated an insurrection against the United States democracy in defiance of all the laws of our Constitution, and still he was reelected. Although I don't believe the election results, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. There's a big case in Rockland County where I raised my children that there are strange anomalies in all of the voting records, that no Democrats in this Democratic enclave voted for Kamala Harris. Everyone voted for Trump. and it's now going up to the Supreme Court in order to see, and I think Elon Musk had something to do with it. But I'm not all about conspiracy theories, although I enjoy listening to most of them. But I don't know. Listen, I think that he's done a lot to divide the country, and now is when they say, in case of emergency, break the glass, take out the fire extinguisher. The place is on fire. And, he's bringing National Guard, Army men into Democratic cities only to harass mostly brown people. And it's in defiance of everything that our country stands for. And if not now, we're going to lose it. In fact, it might be too late already. And people say, don't be a downer. I'm a realist. I'm not a downer. What's happening now in Chicago is un-American. What's happening now with him breaking the emoluments clause and making billions of dollars in his first not even year, billions of dollars, is unconstitutional. It's against the norms of our government. It's like there are different rules for him than there have been for any other president. And I think it has to stop immediately, or democracy is done in the United States.
And the US government is still currently in shutdown as we speak.
Yes.
Has your approach to comedy changed because of the political climate we're in compared to the early days?
No, because I believe in freedom of speech, and I just signed on with Jane Fonda to do that McCarthy-era application of the First Amendment right and support for the First Amendment. And with what happened to Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel, although, America stood up and said, no, Disney, not on our watch. You don't get to be the American family company and then support an active fascist in the White House. I'm sorry, you don't get to do it. It's like drug cartels, but political cartels. And now that they own mainstream media, and this is the only way people are getting their news, is through iPhones in Gaza and or podcasters who are unafraid, because mainstream media is corrupt and it's purchased by the billionaires, and they've let us down. They're not telling us what's going on in Italy. They're not telling us what's going on in every civilized nation in the world to stop what's happening in Gaza. It's the United States providing bombs and weapons that are killing those people and starving those people, and we have to take responsibility for that and stop it before it's too late. What are the Israel plans to kill 2.5 million people, and that just is okay with everyone? They're starving children to death, and no one's saying anything. All of the missing, all bombed with American bombs under the rubble, created by American bombs, and we have to take responsibility for that.
The bridge that you can see just behind me, the Harbour Bridge, we recently had nearly 100,000 people march across that bridge for Gaza. And there's a lot of people who feel powerless and they're trying to use their voice, but there's also a lot of people who don't care and they only care about what's going on in their backyard. What would you say to that?
That the personal is political and that democracy demands dissent. And it's your job as a citizen of the United States or any country that you belong to serve the interests of the nation. Have you heard that Kirby song, Is You a Prophet or Is You for Profit? Are you for yourself or for the nation? Right? And I think that's something that should be sung to Donald Trump every time he shows up anywhere, I don't change what I am or what I'm doing based on who's in the office. I speak what I consider to be truth to power and, a humanistic approach to politics and to world governments. There has to be civility and decency, and there no longer is.
Coming back to your show, you open it and close it with talking about your mother.
Yes.
What is something that you'd want to say to her right now?
No, I don't know if I would do what I would say right now. I will tell you that I do think when I pass away that there will be a reunion of some sort. And I was never one to believe in, heaven or, like people just hanging out waiting for you to show up. But I've been reading a lot of books about people who almost died and what their brain does and what they go through. And I believe in souls and that the soul stays alive after the body has died, and that in some way the spirituality and the spirit and the soul of my mother will be known to me again. And I don't think it's in physical form or whatever, but and then I would love to have a conversation and get to know who she was. And my initial thought of doing this show 10 years ago, which I was never able to finish, was to come to know her as a woman, right? Not as just my mom. But she was an only child, and she didn't, have siblings, or she didn't have cousins, or, there wasn't a lot of research to do. And it had been so long, that I didn't get anywhere with it. But this time feels more like I'm exposing who she was and what effect she had on my life in the 10 years that I had her, and how sad it's been the 52 years without her.
Your relationship with fame, you've spoken about quite a lot, and you've recently come back into the zeitgeist for a lot of younger generations as well. How often do you think people forget that there's a human behind the headlines?
In America, very often. Very often. In Ireland, they don't. In Ireland, they know that you're just a person and that's your job. They don't hold you to a higher esteem. And, there's a disparity between fame and famous people and non-famous people in America, where you can't go anywhere without someone saying, there you are, Oh, aren't you Rosie O'Donnell? I can't believe you're Rosie O'Donnell. You look different. Well, I'm 63. Yeah, but you look very different now than you did. Well, because I was 33. And now I'm double that. I'm 63. And they're like, oh, well, yeah. The crossing guard at my kid's school, finally, after 2 weeks of staring at me, says, Clay's mom, what's your name? I said, Rosie. She said, what's your surname? I said, O'Donnell. She said, oh, just like the famous actress. And I said, well, this might surprise you, but I am the famous actress. No, you're not. I would know Rosie O'Donnell anywhere. I wouldn't know you if I stepped on you. Her with her long, raven black hair and all of her jokes. You're not Rosie O'Donnell. I said, okay, but I really am. Well, if that's how you want to play it, Rosie O'Donnell. Like, she didn't believe it. And then I was on the Late Late Show, which is like the big show in Ireland, where everyone watches it. And after I did that show, she said, I can't believe it's really you. I'm like, it's really me. I feel so foolish. Don't feel foolish. It's all right, Angela.
So you've arrived in Sydney, you've touched down. We want to know, is there anything that you need Australia to clarify? Is there anything that you would like to know for us to confirm or deny?
Well, Vegemite, why? That's
delish.
My question. Is delish?
Delish.
This is, I believe...
Have you eaten it properly?
No, I haven't eaten it at all. I'm totally afraid. But I've only been here since Saturday night, and I've worked every day. So tomorrow is my first day off, and I think we might get a little Vegemite somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, your trees grow out. They don't necessarily grow up. Like, they're all bonsai trees in a way, which is so... I've only seen bonsai trees this big. I'm like, look, there's another one. And finally the driver goes, all our trees are like that. They sound British, don't they? It's not good at all. I know. I shouldn't even try. I'm sorry.
Well, Rosie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Helen. Very
briefing.
nice to meet you. Keep doing what you do, because I believe in podcasts and freedom of the speech lives there. So carry on.
Thank you.
All right.
That was Rosie O'Donnell speaking with me there. And you can catch her show Common Knowledge in Sydney this Thursday, the 9th of October, or in Melbourne on the 19th of October. And we'll pop the links to tickets in our show notes. But that's it for this episode of The Briefing. Before you go, though, we'd love it if you could share this app with someone else you think might enjoy it as well. It's a really easy way you can support everything we do here at The Briefing. And you can check us out on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. I'm Helen Smith. Catch you next time.